Tessa Calder pushed through the revolving doors of the Grand Harbor Hotel at exactly 2:30 p.m., her designer purse swinging from her shoulder with the rhythm of someone who had walked this same path dozens of times before. The marble lobby stretched before her like a familiar stage, and she navigated it with the confidence of an actress who knew her lines by heart. After all, she'd been meeting David Winslow here every Tuesday for 3 months, and the staff had learned to look the other way when she signed the registry with increasingly creative aliases. What Tessa didn't know was that Ramon Alvarado, the hotel's general manager, had been documenting every single visit. Ramon stood behind the mahogany front desk, his fingers drumming silently against the leather-bound ledger where he kept his personal notes, the ones that would never make it into any official hotel record. His cousin Nolan had been deployed overseas for 8 months now, sending letters that arrived like clockwork every 2 weeks, each one filled with plans for their future together. Nolan Calder, who'd taken Tessa's last name when they'd gotten married in that small ceremony before his deployment, much to the family's surprise. "Good evening, Mrs." Ramon paused deliberately, watching Tessa's face. "Thompson, isn't it? Or was it Williams last week?" Tessa's perfectly applied smile faltered for just a moment. She'd grown comfortable with the routine, too comfortable to notice that the manager's questions had shifted from polite to pointed over the past month. "Thompson," she replied smoothly, signing the registry with flourish. "Room 412, as usual." Ramon nodded and slid the keycard across the marble surface. "Of course. Mr. Winslow is already upstairs. He mentioned something about celebrating a promotion at his law firm." The color drained from Tessa's face. She'd never mentioned David's name to anyone at the hotel, had never given any details about her Tuesday companion. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the keycard. "I think there might be some confusion." "Oh, no confusion at all," Ramon said, his voice carrying that peculiar blend of professional courtesy and something much colder. "David Winslow, partner at Morrison, Winslow and Associates. Drives the silver BMW, always requests extra towels, never tips housekeeping. We know all our regular guests, Mrs. Calder." Tessa's breath caught. He'd used her real name. "I'm sorry, I think you have me confused with someone else." Ramon opened the leather ledger and turned it toward her. Page after page of meticulous notes stared back at her. Dates, times, duration of stays, vehicle descriptions, even sketches of the jewelry she wore on different visits. The handwriting was precise, methodical, the work of someone who understood that details mattered. Tuesday, September 12th, arrival 2:47 p.m., departure 6:23 p.m. Wore the diamond earrings, the ones that spell out, "Forever," in cursive. Those were a wedding gift, weren't they? Tuesday, September 19th, seemed nervous, kept checking phone. Probably because your husband called during your meeting with Mr. Winslow. Tessa's hand moved instinctively to her throat, where a thin gold chain held Nolan's dog tags, the ones he'd left with her before shipping out. Ramon noticed the gesture. "He still writes to you, doesn't he? My cousin Nolan. Tells me all about his beautiful wife Tessa, how she's holding down the fort while he's serving overseas. Shows me pictures of you in that blue dress, the same blue dress you wore here 2 weeks ago, actually." The lobby suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Tessa glanced around, noticing for the first time how empty it was, how the usual bustle of guests and staff had mysteriously disappeared. Even the elevators had stopped chiming. "You're Nolan's cousin." It wasn't a question. "Ramon Alvarado. Nolan's mother and my mother are sisters. We grew up together in Phoenix before his family moved to Denver. He's the brother I never had." Ramon closed the ledger with a soft thud. "He calls me every Sunday when he can get to a phone. Talks about how much he misses you, how he's counting down the days until he comes home, how he's planning to surprise you with a house he's been making payments on with his deployment money." Tessa's legs felt unsteady. She gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white against the dark wood. "What do you want?" "Want?" Ramon tilted his head, as if considering the question for the first time. "I don't want anything, Mrs. Calder. I'm simply doing my job. You see, Hotel managers have certain responsibilities. We maintain records, we ensure guest satisfaction, we handle complaints and discrepancies. He reached under the desk and withdrew a manila envelope, thick with documents and photographs. The hotel's security cameras, Tessa realized with growing horror, had captured everything. Her arrivals, her departures, her moments of carelessness when she thought no one was watching. Mr. Winslow has been very understanding about the situation. When I explained that one of our regular guests was married to a deployed serviceman, he was quite concerned about the potential complications. Lawyers, you understand, have reputations to maintain, especially when they're up for partner. Tessa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He's decided to take a position with a firm in Seattle. Quite sudden, really. Left yesterday morning. Didn't even say goodbye. Ramon tapped the envelope against the desk. Odd how these misunderstandings can derail a person's life, isn't it? The full weight of the situation settled over Tessa like a heavy blanket. David was gone, Nolan was still overseas and oblivious, and she was standing in a hotel lobby facing a man who held her entire life in a manila envelope. The photographs are quite clear, Ramon continued conversationally. Timestamps, facial recognition software from our security system, we upgraded last year, quite advanced really. Your husband's commanding officer would probably find them interesting. Military marriages, I understand, have certain expectations. Tessa finally found her voice. What do you want me to do? Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would embarrass the family. Ramon returned the envelope to its place under the desk. You're going to write Nolan a letter. You're going to tell him that you've realized you're not ready for military life, that the distance has made you understand you want something different. You're going to ask for a divorce, cleanly and quietly, so he can move on with his life. And if I don't? Ramon smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then Nolan gets a very different kind of letter. One with photographs and documentation and witness statements from hotel staff. One that destroys not just your marriage, but his career and his sense of trust in everyone he's ever loved. Military courts aren't particularly forgiving about adultery, Mrs. Calder. Neither are families. Tessa stared at the keycard still clutched in her hand, room 412, where David Winslow was no longer waiting, where her Tuesday afternoons had just come to an abrupt end. You've been planning this. I've been protecting my family. Ramon straightened his tie, a gesture so casual it was almost insulting. Nolan deserves better than wondering why his wife stopped writing, why she seems distant during their phone calls, why she's always busy on Tuesday evenings when he manages to call. He deserves to grieve the end of his marriage instead of spending years questioning his own worth. The lobby's grandfather clock chimed 7 times, each note echoing off the marble walls like a countdown. Tessa realized she'd been holding her breath. How long do I have? You have until Sunday. Nolan calls me every Sunday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. If he mentions receiving a letter from you, then we never need to discuss this again. If he doesn't, Ramon shrugged. Well, then I'll have to fulfill my duty as his family. Tessa set the keycard on the desk. Her hands were steady now, resigned. He'll be devastated. Yes, he will. But he'll recover. He's stronger than you think, stronger than you ever bothered to find out. Ramon picked up the keycard and dropped it into a drawer. Men like Nolan, they bounce back from heartbreak. They don't bounce back from betrayal that's been hidden from them for months while they're serving their country. The elevator chimed, and an elderly couple emerged, chatting about dinner plans. The hotel's normal rhythm resumed as if the conversation at the front desk had never happened. Tessa watched the couple walk toward the restaurant, with love in their eyes, a reminder of what she'd thrown away for Tuesday afternoons that now felt hollow and meaningless. Will you tell him the truth eventually? Ramon considered this, his expression thoughtful. Maybe someday, when he's happily remarried to someone who deserves him. Maybe when he has children and a house full of laughter. Maybe then he'll be strong enough to hear about how his cousin protected him from the worst kind of betrayal. He paused. Or maybe I'll take it to my grave. Either way, that's not your concern anymore. Tessa walked toward the hotel's entrance, her heels clicking against the marble with less confidence than when she'd arrived. At the revolving door, she turned back. But, I did love him. Ramon was already helping the next guest, but he glanced up long enough to meet her eyes. No, Mrs. Calder. You loved the idea of him. You loved having someone devoted to you while you did whatever you pleased. That's not the same thing at all. The revolving door swept Tessa out into the evening air, and Ramon watched through the glass as she stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, probably wondering how her carefully constructed double life had unraveled so completely. He returned to his ledger, turning to a fresh page. At the top, he wrote the date and a single line, account closed. Guest will not be returning. His phone buzzed with a text message from Nolan, can't wait to call on Sunday. Have so much to tell you about the surprise I'm planning for Tessa. You're the best for listening to me go on about her every week. Ramon deleted the message without responding. By Sunday evening, Nolan would have very different news to share. But he would heal, eventually, and he would find someone worthy of the devotion he had to offer. The manila envelope would stay locked in Ramon's office safe, insurance against any future attempts by Tessa to change her mind or contact Nolan with elaborate explanations. Some secrets were worth keeping, and some truths were worth protecting people from. As the clock struck 8, Ramon closed the ledger and prepared for the evening shift change, confident that he'd handled the situation exactly as family should, not with vengeance, but with the kind of decisive protection that love sometimes required.